Hello, I'm Bas Hamer from Possum Labs, and today we'll be talking about the source code and talk about contributing to this feedback on GitHub project. So there's a couple of key things behind the code and the design decisions that went into this, and the biggest ones is low maintenance and keeping things simple. This means that we may leverage some libraries that are rather large for the functionality that we require, but by doing so, we have to maintain a lot less code. So let's take a quick look at that code. So our code is primarily in the following areas. We have the feedback.html. This is what we leverage to switch in. And we have the whole thing wrapped in the feedback app, which is being used by Vue to automatically do some search and replace logic and templating for data binding. As you can see, everything in here is relatively straightforward and simple. We have a couple of repeaters for, of course, the actual issues. And then we actually have templates which are in the feedback.js that we'll look at in a second, which are also expressed in HTML. Other than that, not a whole lot going on. It's a relatively simple component, and we do have some known limitations. For instance, one of the things that'd be nice to do is have people create issues in the browser window, not having to navigate to another page. Right? All of these links will navigate off of the page. We don't have the ability to do that right now because it requires single sign-on. And for single sign-on, I think we're going to have to set up a server which is running that, preferably on the domain on which you are signing in on. And doing so would be challenging, especially for a public site. I don't have a good solution for that. So for now, it's just linking to GitHub and pulling issues in so people can look at them, browse them. And to illustrate to people who would consider leaving an issue that, hey, if you leave an issue, it's going to show up on here. It's going to help out other people who are reading this documentation. This part's simple enough. Let's take a look at the JavaScript. I'm not a JavaScript expert, and if you are, you probably are going to cringe at some of the things that are happening in here. Please feel free to provide any information that you wish. So the way that we are working things out, there's a couple of bits of magic going on in here. First of all, we have the query builders. These are effectively HTML encoded templates that we are shoveling to the new issue create page. And this is where we also leverage the project and the path name. Path name is being the location of the document. Project is a combination of the username and repository to create issues, and we leverage the same information to get back information from GitHub as well. Data model, relatively simple. We have the feedback URL, the page feedback URL, the GitHub feedback URL. Right, this is going to issues choose. These guys are using those URLs from above. Open issue count, close issue counts. This is what's currently being used to simulate a tab control. So our tab control is actually controlled by a couple of buttons and showing and hiding stuff. I mean, every tab control has its own little habits. We ended up building our own, so we didn't have to include any additional components since we already have a couple of big ones in there. Open issues and close issues, and then we'll just add to these as our AJAX calls return. So that's what we do in here. We are making our call to the GitHub API. We pull back all the information, and then we increment the close count if it's a closed issue, an open count if it's an open issue, and push things to the appropriate area. We do some formatting in here. So for instance, we only grabbed part of the body up to the double dash. You will find these double dashes in the template that we specify, and it uses a to-local date string. Is this amazing? No. But that's the way it works right now, and it makes it life a little bit simpler. Also, everything is by default not expanded. We use the data coming back from the server, and we just bind straight to that. We have two templates, or components, I guess they call them. The first one is for the comments. It's relatively simple. And the second one is for the issues. So it looks a little bit more complex, but this is an icon. And this guy is an icon as well. So this is like the caret to the right and the caret down. We had to do this to get the view box to line up the way we wanted it to. I mean, it works, so that's why it is the way it is. So even though this looks much bigger and much more intimidating, it's not actually that bad. And then in here we are repeating for all the comments we get back. Hey, we use the feedback app. So this is just a view initialization. Open click, close click. This is just switching between the two tabs. And then we have the expand issue click, where we pass in the issue and then leverage that. We effectively toggle the issue expand on this. And then we check whether or not there are any items. If there's items, then we will add stuff to that. And I think we just grab the first 100. If there's more than 100 comments, we're just ignoring it. There's no paging or anything else in there. So for the issues expand, what we're doing is we are doing the toggling between, expand and collapse. Whereas here we have two different variables we're switching back and forth in between. The biggest reason for that is that right now this thing treats two kinds of issues. Issues that are open and issues that are closed. It's easy to consider that there are more states issues can be in. Especially when you're building this or leveraging this to not be on top of GitHub, in which case you might want to add those additional options as additional tabs. But for GitHub, there's no reason to do that, but that's kind of where the history of this part comes in from. Right now, as you can see, everything's hard-coded for GitHub, but in reality, that can become part of a configuration object in some future iteration if necessary. Okay, so that's what's going on there. Last thing is the CSS. We assume people are going to be overriding the CSS. The only thing that is really noteworthy from the CSS, coming from somebody who is not great at CSS, is that we do try to ensure that we don't mock up anyone else's CSS, which is why you'll find this feedback app hard-coded in here as well. Right, this is what's allowing us to ensure that our styles do not interfere with the styles of whichever component this stuff is living on. Alright, that is the quick and easy overview. So yeah, as you can see, this is not too big of a project to wrap your head around. For me, it has been fun to build the initial version of. It was interesting to leverage Vue for this. My background is primarily in Angular, but Angular would be very poorly suited for something this size. And Vue actually performed rather well while allowing for similar patterns as I would use in Angular. A little bit less splitting things up, but that might be because I don't know exactly what's going on. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. If there's any particular item you want to add, features you want to add, things you want to change, feel free to reach out and set up some time. If you have any feedback on how things are designed, where things live, how it's broken down, please let us know. Some things will be good fit for the project, other things will not be. I think whenever we get to the point of like, hey, to run this, you have to require a server, which effectively means supporting single sign-on. It might not be a good fit for this project unless there's a way that people can still have a lightweight deployment. And right now I don't have a good idea on how that would be something you can accomplish. It seems like no matter what, you're going to have to do something heavier weight. You're going to have to get API keys from GitHub set up and the configuration set up, and that's going to severely impact the getting started guide. So yeah, let's try and avoid that, right? This was one of the first things we wrote, And the goal was, how can we make this a reality, right? How can we make it a reality to have this amount of configuration and setup and end up with this? The more complex we make this, the harder it is going to be for people to leverage this, and it becomes less valuable. But maybe there's a room for a component that does do all of those things for people who are more advanced users. All right, I think that is it for this one. Please let me know what you think. I would love to have feedback on the project, and thank you very much for your time.